Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace the alternator on this Audi 4.2 V8. Very similar process for any models that do have this 40 valve 4.2. So I will be going through all the steps. It is a 6-speed swapped A6 with the S6 motor. All right, so as I said, we will go ahead, disconnect our negative. Make sure the car is either in first gear, emergency brake up, or park, emergency brake up. Common sense. This is where I like to position mine, just right under the subframe here. So here is the alternator. Got a little cooling duct. Pop that off. Just loosen this AC line here. We're going to release the belt, not take it off all the way, just take it off from the alternator. Just move it out of the way, and then we have 2 bolts holding it on. You can see we got 1 bolt there on the bottom, and then 1 bolt. I don't know if you can see that where my finger is. 1 bolt up here toward the side. So just 2 bolts, and then we have on the back here just a couple wires. So the main wire there and 2 smaller ones. Okay, so once again, unbolt that AC line. Just gonna give us just a little bit more wiggle room here. Get your wrench in there. That's a 19 millimeter for the tensioner. Just get some little, a long 3/8 swivel ratchet. This one's just some piece of crap Pittsburgh setup here. That does the trick fine. And you are going to pull it clockwise. Does take a little bit of force. You'll pull it clockwise and just pull the belt off of the AC. Don't try not to let it fall off some of the other pulleys, because it can be difficult to get this belt back on just from being under the car like this. Alright, so now that we have the belt out of the way, I just took a bungee and pulled it up the top. Alright, once again, get your wrench on there. Harbor Freight Special 13 millimeter. Get your bottom bolt out. Alright, and for the top bolt, you can see there, it is a 8 millimeter hex bolt. Get your wrench on there and break it loose. Might require a little bit of force, but it's loose. It's quite a long bolt. Might take a while. And then go ahead and take your wrench out. Get your hand up there and turn it off by hand. And there's the top bolt. So now we have both of our bolts out. Let's come to the back of the alternator here. So we have I believe it is a 8 mil for this connection here, and then that top one there should just pull out, and then we have a 13 millimeter for the main wire there. Alright, so reason that we loosened the alternator first is so you can see here, just put a little bit of force on that and now it slides out and you've got more room to get to these connections here. If you do have a secondary air injection pump here, you might need to loosen it, give yourself some extra room here to work. And if your alternator does not move freely, go ahead, take a pry bar, and you will just go ahead, stick it in between the oil pan and under the alternator, and you'll go ahead and just pry downward or sideways, whichever way. All you're trying to do is get the alternator to separate from those dowels that have been tightened to hold it in place, just trying to move it out away from the engine block. Alright, so once we get the bottom two wires off here, you can start wiggling the alternator. Try to get it dismounted. If it doesn't move, take your pry bar towards the top and pry down. Now, you might have a secondary air injection pump here, right here, which would make that more difficult. But either way, you can pry from the underside as well. Once you get it wiggled out, just be careful it doesn't fall down as mine did. But usually you'll pry it down just a little bit more so you can get your hand up there and pull this wire out, and then you're free. What you'll want to do is make sure this dowel here is pushed all the way out, just like so, because if it's pushed in, you're going to have a really hard time getting this back up there. When you tighten this bolt like so, this sleeve pulls back and hugs against that bracket there and keeps this in place. Inspect your wires here, clean them up if necessary. Just make sure there's no excess corrosion or anything here. We'll go ahead, let's put this wire on first, slide that on, and then go ahead, get your alternator positioned. Also, make sure you have this top bolt handy, as you will need to slide it in once you get it up. Okay, so you can see here we're in position. Get your bolt in, easier said than done. Alright, got our bolt in most of the way here. Try to get it threaded in before you start tightening it. Don't want to cross thread anything, and it is difficult to get your arm up there. You might get scraped up a little bit. Then go ahead, make sure our top wire is still on, and then new alternator comes with a new bolt. Usually take that off, slide your main wire on, like so. Throw that guy on. Same thing with the bottom wire. That looks like the new one comes with a different size bolt. And I'm just going to go ahead, get my hand up there and get that top bolt on as much as I possibly can with my fingers. Just makes tightening it easier. If you over tighten the top bolt, for whatever reason the pulley stops spinning. So I would tighten the top bolt until the pulley stops spinning and then back it off and just make sure that that pulley spins. Because if you over tighten it, obviously pulley won't spin, alternator won't charge the battery. If I loosen it, it'll start spinning again. Take it off our bungee. Get your socket on there. Once again, turning that clockwise. So easiest way is get your right hand on the wrench, left hand on the belt while you are hugging the alternator, and then pull the wrench toward you. As you pull that wrench, the belt will get more slack, and then just slide that belt over the alternator, and then now we're tight again. Just make sure you got good tension on your belt. Turn it counterclockwise a little bit, retension that belt, good tension. Now we can put the AC hose back in place here. That mark indicates right around 14 volts. If you trust your gauge on the instrument cluster, if not, you can always check with a multimeter at the battery. But that is considered normal.